Hello, everyone, and welcome to the program year 2021 training. This is the first video in a series of videos that IHCDA will be putting out to kind of get you up to speed on what the changes are going to be for program year 2021. The changes are going to be minimal, but there are some important changes that we need to go over. And we just want to be sure that we get them out to you in as clear and as safe a way as possible for everyone. This past program year has certainly been a challenge, and at least the beginning of 2021 will likely be a similar challenge. This is a really weird way for me to be delivering this training. I do miss getting to see everyone and to talk with everyone, to interact with everyone. Let me tell you, talking to a computer screen that is just putting back a recording of myself is a really, really weird way to be giving this training. So I hope that this training is engaging for you. I hope that's helpful. You will be able to go back and review it. It will be posted to IHCDA's partner website. And of course, we are going to be having some Q&A sessions around this. I think the other advantage to the way we're doing this is that as we see that we're getting a lot of questions on the same material, we can certainly put out additional training videos and kind of keep it going as an evolving library, which I think will be very, very helpful for us and will hopefully lead to more clarity within the network and more consistency in how we're administering EAP. So, so this is kind of experiment, but let's hope that it ends well. I am going to go ahead and switch over to the presentation I have here. And hopefully you guys should be seeing this now. Okay, so we are looking at the program year 2021 IHCDA EAP operations. We're going to look at the operations updates, policy changes, and changes to forms. And first, let's look at operations updates. As you know, with the online applications, those have been done for the past year through EAPCONNECT. This year, IHCDA will be moving forward with transitioning from RIA to EAPCONNECT. Rowing has been kind enough to provide intensive training across a series of 5 webinars. I know the first webinar has already been presented in 2 different sessions, kind of a high-level overview of some of the enhancements that will be coming through with EAPCONNECT and some of the things that Brad and his team are working really hard on porting over from RIA to make it even more robust and user-friendly. And we are very thankful for Rome's partnership and for everything that they're doing to both to make the experience of using EAPCONNECT better, both for the LSPs and for our applicants, as well as to really beef up the communication and education around that. And I know that Brad has already gone over this in that introductory webinar, but just to be clear, RIA is still going to be available for this year as long as it remains compatible with any further Windows updates that Microsoft decides to roll out. However, LSPs are expected to make every effort to transition fully to EAPCONNECT this year. As I mentioned in a previous email, RIA really is a legacy application at this point, and we quite simply don't know when RIA is going to become unstable with regards to future Windows updates or .NET Framework updates. Just to review, EAPCONNECT is Rowing's web-based interface. It is accessible from any computer without local RIA installation. it is fully integrated with RIA. Really, RIA and EAPCONNECT are kind of just two different faces over the same database. So you can kind of think of it in that way, that it's not so much the database as just the interface that you use in order to access that database. And any changes processed in RIA will be uploaded into the EAPCONNECT servers on a daily basis. Contracts. So I don't have any real specific information on this yet. However, I just want to give everyone a heads up that in order to promote compliance with federal guidelines and better accountability with our fiscal team, we are looking at the likelihood of issuing separate agreements and award balances for various types of funds. For instance, the reallotment, the carryover, the regular 2021 award. I know that everyone is used to getting your program year grant, and then if you look at that very last page, the attachment A, and then whatever number amendment you're on, you would see where that total award amount is broken out between the current year funds and carryover that we are allocating from the previous year. So this year we are looking at completely separating those out into separate awards. And because we are anticipating getting a small reallotment from HHS, we're looking at probably having 3 2021 awards for everyone. And that is in addition to the CARES Act award. So everyone is probably going to be having 4 awards that they're going to have to juggle this year. I know that adds an extra layer of confusion and complication on top of things. But we will absolutely offer additional guidance and support as these funding streams do become available. And we think that it's going to be probably a year of adjustment. But I think, we think that that once you've kind of fully adjusted to that way of doing things, it won't really impact things too badly. It should be a pretty easy adjustment, we would think. And again, IHCDA is happy to offer whatever guidance and support everyone needs in order to be sure that they're doing things correctly. The other thing to know with regards to contracts and budgets is that with the current political climate and the election coming this year, we have been given a heads up that we are not likely to know our full program year 2021 funding until the spring of 2021. So the appropriations committees have pretty much said that they are not terribly interested in taking up a full vote on new appropriations bills until after the presidential election has happened and has been decided. And then, of course, it's a whole process. So we are most likely looking at February of 2021 as being the absolute earliest that we are going to know what our final allocation is for the program year. So what we are going to be looking for is a continuing resolution sometime in the fall that will essentially most likely award us what we received for program year 2020. So that might put a little bit of a crunch on things at first. So I just, this is something I just found out about a couple weeks ago, and I just wanted everyone to be aware and be on the same page and kind of be mentally prepared for that. Vendor MOAs. So all vendors signed new MOAs in 2019. And of course, because we use 2-year MOAs, new MOAs will not need to be completed this year unless it is a new vendor or a vendor that did not participate with us in program year 2020. So if you do have either a new vendor or someone who didn't participate in program year 2020, we are trying to eliminate those paper MOAs. So rather than sending them an MOA, please have them contact LIHEAP at ihcda.in.gov, and we can set up an MOA within Adobe Sign and get that taken care of. Also, just as a reminder, last year we did stop our practice of entering into MOAs with wood vendors and other biofuel providers. However, LSPs are more than welcome to develop their own MOAs in order to enter into agreements with wood vendors or other biofuel providers and to pay them directly using a voucher system and then be reimbursed from IHCDA. If anyone has any questions on that, please reach out to us and let us know. We can kind of walk you through it or partner you with another agency who already has gone through that process. Transmittals, I believe this slide is exactly the same as it was last year. No real changes with transmittals from program year 2020. All transmittals should be sent electronically unless regular postal mail is the only way that vendor can receive them. And just for our own knowledge, please notify us of any vendors who are exceptions to this, who claim that they can only receive them through postal mail. All claims must be transmitted to vendors within 10 business days of the claim approval, so that's 2 weeks. And we do ask everyone to please adhere to a weekly schedule at minimum for both transmittals and for submission of signed transmittals to IHCDA Fiscal. We are just trying to keep the funds rolling in as efficient a way as possible and kind of try to minimize those issues regarding vendor calls or sometimes clients calling because they haven't seen the payment come through on their bill, or alternately, if they are receiving a self-pay. This slide is mostly unchanged from last year. Once again, we do strongly encourage agencies to have kind of a generic email inbox where they can accept documents, applications, and questions or requests for information. It just makes it a lot easier, for clients who may be seeking information, to have kind of a generic inbox that can be accessed by anyone working in energy assistance. And B, I think even IHCDA can use that. There are definitely things where we want to talk just to the manager, but if we have a general question about something concerning a client, I know that sometimes questions come through to me that could, where it seems like it could be answered at a lower level, and I want to be able to respect everyone else's time and energy as well. And so if we just have a question about records on a client, where an intake staff could answer that as opposed to the manager, and you would prefer that to go to an intake staff, we would like to be able to do that. So if you do have that generic email inbox, please do let us know, and let us know if there are any instances in which you would like us to use that rather than emailing the program manager or designee for everything. And of course, IHCDA does have that generic email inbox. It is liheap@ihcda.im.gov. As a reminder, agencies should use the LIHEAP inbox for general correspondence, questions about guidance, sending back budget modifications, any other questions, rather than emailing the manager or analyst directly. The reason for that is because this way, if it goes to liheap@ihcda.in.gov, then I have access to that. Sam, Cedric, Renee, Emily, they all have access to that. So someone will get your email. If you just send it to one person and that person happens to be out of the office unexpectedly, sick, that email may go unanswered. It may get buried in the inbox. We did have some technological issues with the LIHEAP inbox, as you know, when we transitioned to work from home. Those appear to have been resolved. But I think the other part of this is if you have sent something and it's been maybe 1 or 2 business days, maybe 3 tops. Feel free to just reach back out again and give us a a prompt to kind of remind us, put it back on our radar. We do ask for at least 1 day of time before you follow back up on it. We're not necessarily always able to drop everything to respond to every email that comes through, but we do expect to get to everything within 48 hours. So please don't let a whole lot of time go. Hold us accountable. We definitely want to be accountable. We are all human. I know that I've dropped more than my share of balls, and I do freely admit that. But I do try to respond to everything, or to get it into the hands of someone who can respond. So if we miss something, please just let us know within a reasonable amount of time, and we will get on it. All right, CARES Act. As you know, everyone was administered CARES Act funding in the late spring of 2020 to assist households that were impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. This funding expires on September 30th, 2021, and is therefore still available to be drawn down by LSPs. That includes both admin and benefits. And we will be uploading a separate presentation just with some more specifics on the CARES Act agreement. I just wanted to mention it in this main overview. Statewide application, we have put out a new 2-page front and back application that is mandatory for all LSPs. IHCDA has also provided a Spanish language version of the application this year. We were overjoyed to be able to get that translation done. As many of you know, I did try to get a translation done last year, and I had reached out to several different parties, including the person who had done the 2019 translation, and no one was available to do that translation for me. I ended up Frankensteining a translation together using Google Translate. Unfortunately, I have no fluency in Spanish. A little bit of trivia about me. In high school, I had 4 years of Latin, and then in college, I took French. So it was very much a just cobbled together using, looking at the 2019 application and also using some Google Translate to fill in some holes. I was not confident in the accuracy of that translation at all, and I felt that it would do more harm than good to put out a bad translation than to put out no translation at all. I did shop it around to several different parties and organizations asking for someone to proofread my translation, and I did not receive any takers. So the lack of a Spanish language translation last year was not by design. It was not my desire to not have it, and it was not for lack of trying. But I am very, very pleased to be able to present a translation this year that I am confident in. For those of you with Adobe, with full versions of Adobe Acrobat, IHCDA does encourage you to create fillable fields on the EAP application to be able to send out to potential applicants who provide an email for you to send out to. You can also post those on your website if you like, just because it makes it a little bit easier for some people to fill it out. We will allow, and this is the same as last year, we will allow LSPs to fill out applications over the phone without obtaining a client signature. However, notes must be made in the statewide database. Those notes must indicate why you're doing it over the phone. The phone application is to be used as a last resort. And then you also need to be sure that you read the entire release of information statement, and that the person who is verbally giving you permission does acknowledge all the elements of that statement. The statewide database will no longer require applicants to fill out their full Social Security number. The first 5 numbers will be X's on the form. And the paper application itself, we actually have removed the Social Security number field for most of the household members. We do have it intact for the head of household who is filling out the application only. And this is in large part because at this point, we are allowing the real IDs and the passports to be used in place of Social Security numbers. And quite frankly, it's we needed the space. So we are looking at an overhaul of the statewide application for program year 2022. And so some of this information may be reinstated. We will see. We're going to try to do whatever is best for the program and balance that with what's with what is being asked of both the LSPs and the applicants. And then finally, your agency's logo and contact information must be entered at the top of the paper application form. Dates, the dates are unchanged from last year. For appointments, you must accurately determine the household eligibility within 10 days. For mail-ins, and there is clarification in the manual that whenever we use the term mail-ins, we're talking about applications that are submitted in any way other than a face-to-face appointment. So that could be people delivering by proxy, that could be an online application, that could be an application that is submitted by phone, that could be an emailed application, or that could be an application that is sent through the postal mail. Whenever you have any of those applications that are delivered in any way other than a face-to-face appointment, you do need to state the date or stamp the date that was received, and you have 55 days from that date to determine eligibility. The time frame on that 55-day period does start on November 1st. So any application received before November 1st, you would have 55 days from November 1st, not necessarily from the date that was actually received. Receive date is the date an application is received by the LSP. You should date stamp all incoming mail-in applications when they are received, and they should be processed on a first received, first served basis, unless there is a crisis situation that comes to your awareness prior to processing. So in EAPCONNECT, the application date is going to be the date stamp that you first received a signed application. The application entered date is going to be the day that the application was entered into the database. That is automatically populated by EAPCONNECT. And as you can see here, it's kind of gray instead of black like the other dates. Because that is automatically populated when you create the application, that is not going to be able to be changed. And then the completion date is the day that the application documentation was completed. So that is the day that, say, an application comes in and it has everything in there. Great. When you put in that application, using this example, say the application date was 8/1, you enter on 8/23. If everything was there when the application was received, you can just put 8/1 as your application completed date. Let's say, for example, they did not submit their a Social Security card for the head of household, and then you send them an incomplete letter. You send them the incomplete letter. They get the Social Security card back to you on 8/30. So in that case, your application date will still be 8/1. Your application enter date, assuming that you actually started the application in the system on 8/23, will still be 8/23. And for the application completed date, you're going to want to put 8/30. And just to clarify, with regards to the I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. With regards to the processing guidelines, that 55-day period, I know this is August and the 55-day period starts in November, but let's just forget that for a moment. So that 55-day period would be from 8/1, from the application date, and not from 8/30, the application completed date. So if you are if you do need to send an incomplete letter, you need to bear in mind what that original date submitted was, because that's going to reflect how you calculate when everything needs to be done with it, not the completion date, but the actual date that the application would put into your hands. Closed accounts, this is mostly the same as last year, but I did add some clarification. An EAP benefit can be applied to a closed account if the client received the pledge or benefit before the account was closed. An EAP benefit cannot be applied if the funds are pledged or transmitted to the vendor after the client has closed the account. Vendors should not apply EAP benefits to closed accounts with a balance. And benefits should only be awarded to accounts that are indicated to be scheduled for closure or in final bill status if such a benefit will result in the account being reinstated and service continued at the address of record. So if someone comes in with a bill that says it's a final bill that indicates that the account that the entire account is going to be closed or has already been closed, that's when you need to start asking questions, because a final bill or a closed account most of the time indicates that there is no intention for service to be continued at that address. And because the purpose of EAP is to provide continuing service, that is a problem. So we just ask that everyone keep your eyes open for that. I think we saw a few more of those this year than we have in previous years, and we just want to make sure that that is something that's on everyone's radar and that everyone is aware of and looking for. So here's an example of that. So in this example, a client closed an electric account and declared bankruptcy after submitting a mail-in application. The LSP transmitted a benefit 5 days after the vendor closed the account. The electric company did not catch that the account was closed when checking the transmittal, and the transmittal was approved. When the funds were paid to the electric company, the company applied the funds to the outstanding balance. So in this case, the company should have rejected the benefit on the transmittal. If it did get through the transmittal process, as this example stated that it does, then the vendor should have sent the entire benefit back to IHCDA upon realizing that they had accepted funds for a closed account. Individual checks, and I just noticed I have a typo there. I'm sorry about that. LSPs must make every effort to have clients who receive a direct payment benefit sign up for ACH or direct deposit. And that just, it's going to make everything so much easier. I know that we had a few problems this year that resulted in delays of paper checks. And we just have a lot of clients, I think especially when we have when we do a large check run and we just have a lot of checks going out at once. For whatever reason, when we send out a lot of checks like that, it seems like we have a lot that just go missing in the postal mail system. And it's frustrating for the client. It's frustrating for you. It's frustrating for us. It's frustrating for our program accounting team when we're asking them to follow up and check on the status of 20 different checks. And honestly, the way to help all of this and to speed things up for the client is to get as many as possible, to give them the direct deposit information and just pay out the benefits by ACH rather than checks. Once again, IHCDA will be printing and mailing checks and initiating direct deposits. That is not something that the LSPs will have to do. And of course, if a biofuel client is in crisis and needs an immediate benefit, and the LSP does not enter into MOAs with biofuel vendors, then the LSP may issue the client an immediate crisis benefit and submit a claim for reimbursement. The LSP must include a list of clients who received a crisis benefit with the claim submission. And for clients with utilities included in the rent, once again, the threshold of monthly rent required to be paid in order to be eligible for a benefit is $1. So essentially, we are not really too concerned with how much rent they pay. We are just concerned with the fact that they have rent that they have to If they have to pay rent, then that automatically means that they have an energy burden. If the utilities are in the rent and their rent is completely 100% subsidized, then they are not eligible for a benefit because they do not have that energy burden. All right, LSP admin. This is probably the biggest change we have this year. There is going to be a separate presentation to really review the change in more detail and what it means and how to navigate it. So the bottom line here is we are lowering the budget line item on admin. It has been 8.5. We are lowering it to 7.5. However, we are also adding an additional line item. This line item is direct program expenses, and that is going to be 2.5%. So really, if you think about it, even though we're lowering your admin from 8.5 to 7.5, we're adding that 2.5%, which really makes a total of 10%. The other side of the coin here is that the admin is going to continue to be 7.5% of your total expenditures, which means that if you underspend by the end of the program year and you've already done your entire 7.5% that you had budgeted, if you actually overspend 7.5% of what your final closeout is, then there will be a payback required. However, direct program expenses is going to be 2.5% of your award and not your expenditures, which means if you underspend, and that means that your direct program expenses, you end up spending like 2.8 or 3% instead of 2.5 once you close out, that doesn't matter. We're going to be looking at the award, not the expenditures, and so there's not going to be a required payback there. Once again, there is going to be a separate presentation. I anticipate probably answering a lot of questions about this during our Q&A sessions. But this is something that I personally have been wanting to implement since I started at IHCDA, and this was, I think, a huge win that we got this through. I'm really, really excited for this to roll out, and I do think that it's going to be a positive change for all of you. So I hope that you are just as excited about it, and I look forward to kind of diving a bit more into what that really means for you and how it's going to help all of the agencies. All right, with that said, let's get into the policy changes. Crisis benefit changes, there are no changes. I just left this slide up from last year just as a reminder of what we are doing. I know that there was some controversy around the awarding of the crisis benefit prior to assessing the regular benefit. Last I checked, it was about 50-50 split on for versus against. And essentially with the year that we've had and the year that we are going into and the short turnaround time, we did determine that it would be best not to change this year. So we did talk about it. We talked about changing it for the early applications also, because I know that was a concern that a lot of people had last year. And you know, it's in the favor of having just one policy that applies to everyone and not trying to break out policy that changes based on when someone submits an application, which would just needlessly complicate things and could possibly look discriminatory towards people who apply early. We decided to keep going with what we were already doing. So the crisis benefit is going to remain $200 per utility for a total of $400 potential per household. You cannot, if someone has a $100 disconnect on one utility and a $300 disconnect on the other, you cannot you cannot waive $100 over the other utility. It's still a maximum of $200 per utility. $400 for households who have a primary heating source that is electric. Prices for both fuels and biofuels given up front, and clients may still come back once after initial application approval to use any crisis funding that is not used at the time of approval. Here are how our new income guidelines shake out this year. Bit of an increase over last year. As with last year, it's between household of 8 and 9, where the 60% of the SMI is outpaced by 150% of the federal poverty guidelines. And so we use the SMI for households of 8 and 150% of federal poverty guidelines for households of 9. Woods and biofuels, that all remains the same. I just updated this this slide because of the policy on LSPs entering into MOAs with vendors that was issued as a policy guidance after the 2020 manual came out. Once again, this policy is no different than what we issued back in, I think back in November, October or November of 2019. If anyone has any questions on it, you can bring it up during the Q&A, or you may email us your questions if they're more in depth, and we will work with you to support you and guide you on it. Confidential applications, this is all very much the same. I just added a little bit of clarifying language on it. I know that there was some confusion last year over the application's confidential checkbox. I want to be very clear that that must be checked in the statewide database for all applications that involve any employee, governing board member, subcontractor, or any relative of any such person. You can see there what the what relatives are counted as. The other clarification I put in here, it's very slight, but I just clarified that the quality assurance review by a supervisor level staff who is not related to the recipient of benefits must also not have been involved in determining eligibility. We don't want the same person to be completing a file, processing a file, and then doing a QA on their own file that they just processed. Drastic loss of income. This remains the same with the clarifying point at the bottom that the drastic loss policy, as you likely remember, has been expanded during the state of emergency related to the pandemic. Because Governor Holcomb has continued to extend that state of emergency, this policy remains in place. And so when I go over the CARES Act funding in a different presentation, I will be reviewing the changes to the drastic loss of income in that presentation. Emergency repair and replace. This is the second year of ERR being available to all clients within the state, to clients in all territories within the state, rather. The same eligibility requirements apply. Has to be a household where at least one member is verified at risk, and the residents must be homeowners. The ER benefit is not available to renters at this time. We are continuing to allow you to either operate using a $5,000 per household cap, or to ensure that your average benefit per household does not exceed $5,000. the clarifications and additions I made here are that the ER checklist and documentation of warranty for both labor and materials must be required, must be provided. They are required. The applicant is not to be made responsible for arranging for quotes, estimates, assessments, or actual work. All that does need to be arranged by the LSP. You can do it in conjunction with the applicant, but you cannot have the applicant bring quotes to you. Routine maintenance measures may not be paid for using ERR funds. And we have seen a couple cases where a furnace was assessed to be functioning. However, there was a legitimate health and safety concern that in professional opinion of some people justified a replacement. IHCDA is definitely open to looking at those cases and seeing whether they meet criteria for an emergency repair versus a weatherization referral. We just ask that you involve us at that point. Contact IHCDA for clearance, kind of talk to us through what the issue is, and we'll be happy to consult with our weatherization team, get their thoughts on it, because obviously most of us working in EAP are not experts when it comes to things like this, technical things with that. But we are very open to using this benefit to provide emergency repairs and replacements wherever it makes sense to. So just if you see something where it seems like maybe our policy is missing something and it's called for, just involve us in the conversation at that point. I added some clarification here on emergency services. Emergency services is going to continue to be available. The claims must be tied to a natural disaster, catastrophic weather event, or medical emergency requiring the use of electrical medical equipment in the home. Weather events must be documented through official determination by the National Weather Service or another appropriate source. And also, those benefits must be awarded within 30 days of that qualifying event. As it has been for the past 2 years, having a large disconnection notice due to continued non-payment does not by itself constitute qualification for an emergency services benefit. And emergency services may not be used as an additional crisis benefit in the absence of a qualifying disaster, weather, or medical event. And please, I encourage everyone, if anyone has any questions or would like to, if they have a situation, kind of like we talked about with ERR, if you have a situation where you feel like the emergency services benefit really is called for, just contact us and request that exception. Be prepared to provide all of your justification for why the situation you're facing calls for the use of emergency services funding. And we really are happy to consider anything that you do bring to us. Referral forms, this has not changed at all. I only kept it in here because I know that there was some confusion about this last year. So remember, the referral forms are required to be part of your application packet. Best practice really is instead of just handing over an application, you should have a pre-made packet of forms and resources that you do distribute with your application form. And this referral form that you create really should be part of that packet and available for download on your website. So this referral form would, at a minimum, include all other income-based programs that your agency or office provides. You may also include income-based programs administered by community partners. And the idea behind it is that the client returns the form to you indicating what programs they would like referrals to or more information on. And then you're able to document to us that these referrals were requested and were made. And the whole reason that we've implemented this is because we are trying to move EAP away from being the picture of kind of this annual transactional program where people say, okay, it's that time of year, I need to go in, I need to apply for my EAP, and then don't think about it again for another year. We're trying to move away from that model, and we're trying to move more towards a holistic service delivery model where this is just one element of getting people involved in a structure of programs that's going to help move them towards self-sufficiency. And this is just kind of the very first step toward that. We are looking at additional changes coming down the road. So I do want everyone to be aware of that. But that's why this requirement is here. That being said, as we said last year, we do understand that that applicants don't always turn in all the documentation as requested. We do not want applicants to be denied because they did not turn this in. We don't necessarily want your intake staff to have to waste a lot of time doing follow-up on a referral form. And just in general, we don't want it to be too burdensome. So if a client doesn't return it, you don't need to follow up on it. We're not going to mark you off on your monitoring for not having it. Just please indicate in the case notes. You may want to set up an application action to make it an easy process that the client did not return the referral form. And Renee will see that and all will be good. This is a new slide, household eligibility versus benefit eligibility. This is something that's always been kind of an implicit policy of IHCDA, but we've kind of seen a bit more in recent years of this being an issue. So we just wanted to take the time to clarify it. Intake staff must take care to distinguish between household eligibility and individual benefit eligibility. And what we mean by that is if there is something that is preventing the award of a benefit for a household that is otherwise eligible, say there's inoperable heating equipment, the electricity is currently turned off and the household is not able to get turned on at the current time, there's an outstanding deposit on the account and the vendor is not agreeing to not award or to not use the benefit to pay that deposit, and the household does not have the funds to pay the deposit on their own. These are things that only affect the eligibility for a specific benefit and do not impact the overall household eligibility items. And one of the reasons that this is so important is because there are other resources out there these days that sometimes use LIHEAP household eligibility in order to determine eligibility for their own programs. There's some phone and cable providers who will offer discounts to households that, cable internet providers that is, who might offer discounts on service to households who can demonstrate that they are indeed LIHEAP eligible. On top of that, moratorium protection. Even if we don't pay a benefit out, if someone is eligible for LIHEAP and they show that they applied and that they are eligible, they are required to be protected by that moratorium. And we want to be able to get them that protection even in cases where, say, their heating equipment may be inoperable. we want to ensure that utility does not get turned off. And so we really need to draw that line and take care to still determine household eligibility in those cases. And then the other part of it is if a household resolves those issues that's preventing the benefit payment, if they get that deposit paid, if they get that inoperable equipment fixed, if they get that electric service turned on, if they've already been determined eligible as a household and then they come back 2 months later and show that they've rectified those problems, you're going to be able to just put that benefit right in for that account. We are not going to redetermine household eligibility rather, because again, our policy is that we determine eligibility for a household one time per program year. Once someone is eligible, they're eligible for the entire year. We don't look at any changes to their income or anything like that. And just kind of going along with this, because household eligibility does not necessarily look at the utility bill itself, we should not be denying applications simply for not turning in a utility bill. You can ask a client to turn that in. You can tell them that they are eligible, but you are unable to pay benefit until they turn in that utility bill. Best practice really is to, that's one of the reasons why we actually ask on the application who their vendor is, because best practice would be to go ahead and request, to contact that vendor and request a copy of a bill or an account statement. Part of the MOA is cooperation with requests and sharing of applicant information. So if you do get any pushback from vendors, you should be letting IHCDA know so that we can address that. But the vendors should, by and large, be cooperating with any requests for information from the LSP network. All right, on to changes of forms with a photo of all of the old forms burning, along with the rest of 2020. Statewide application form, we have slightly streamlined language on the form to make it a little bit easier for applicants. Last 4 digits of the Social Security number are only required for the have household. By eliminating that Social Security number column in the household member form area, we have been able to add employment status, which is a required characteristic for CSBG report module 4. And as reviewed earlier, we do have a Spanish language version of the application this year. I have sent the application form out to everyone, but here is what it looks like this year. Very much the same as last year with just some minor formatting changes. And here's the Spanish version. Request for earnings information, that was a new form that IHCDA rolled out last year. As you likely remember, we did change that form this spring when COVID-19 hit, and we changed our drastic loss of income policy. So we edited the form to better capture that eligibility for drastic loss of income and for eligibility for CARES Act funding. And essentially for this year, because that state of emergency is still in place, we are continuing with the new version, which this is the old version. I forgot to update this slide, and I am very sorry. I'll be sure when I know that the new version is in the folder of appendices I sent out earlier, and I will be sure when I get this presentation uploaded to update this photo. And those really are, other than the budget forms, which will be gone over again in another presentation, those are really the only major changes that we have. Obviously, the matrix changed, but you can look at Appendix A for a list of all the manual changes. Again, we kept them as as light and low key as possible this year to make it easier for everyone to transition in during a very difficult year. And that brings me to an end of this first presentation. So I got this in under an hour. I know that it is difficult to sometimes keep your focus during long webinars. So I appreciate everyone sticking with me. I look forward to being able to take everyone's questions, and please look for more videos coming soon. Thank you.